Hi, my name's Kai Degner, and I'm here to announce a new campaign. It's not a campaign for local office. It's not for city council or mayor. I've already done that. And it's not to run for Congress again. But it is to make a difference in society. So that's what this video is about, and I'm thrilled to share it with you. The campaign is official. We have a button that says Listening Campaign. As you can see down here, we have a Listening Campaign mascot. His name is Miko, and he's got big ears, and he's proof that you can have big ears and not be a good listener. Right, Miko? Yeah, we'll hear more from Miko later, I'm sure. So, what is the listening campaign all about? Well, it's a campaign to create more listening. That's it. It's not really that complicated. But the possibilities that we can unlock when we actually make other people feel heard and understood are really boundless. And that's what the essence of the campaign is all about, is to create listening breakthroughs. And my job is to inspire you and give you the tools and methods and techniques that you can use immediately in your one-on-one conversations, in your meetings, in your nonprofit, in your political life, in your community life, and in your business to add listening where it's missing and then achieve the breakthroughs that become possible. Because when we make each other feel heard and understood, we understand where there's miscommunication, we level up the trust, and we level up really what's possible in those interactions. Now, first of all, I'm not accusing anybody of being a bad listener. In fact, everybody has the capacity to be a tremendous listener, but there's caveats to that. See, listening is a goal-directed exercise. The goal that we have that's conscious in our mind about how we're listening in any instance actually dictates how much we are tuned in. If there's an emergency or somebody's really dealing with something, you can tune in. You have the ability to demonstrate the 33 traits of an effective listener. But we don't do it all the time. And we don't do it because we don't always think about what's at stake in the conversation. And we're not intentional about listening. So part of this first video is setting that context. I am excited to release this listening campaign with a 3-part video series. This video is going to give you the basic concepts and some tools and techniques that you can use immediately as an individual right after watching this video. The second video is going to be about a specific method to do this with teams. We have, it's estimated, 55 million meetings a day in America, and that doesn't count all the side conversations that we have and the conversations in our personal life. There's lots of opportunities to add listening to group conversations. And if you're a leader or you're part of a team or you're even having conversations around the dinner table or you want to help bridge this political divide that we have, you need a method that adds listening, doesn't just let people take turns talking. And then the third video is going to be about how do you create a big campaign? How would you create listening at a scale that's larger, that's maybe months long, for your organization or your business or your career? So that's what this video is about and what the next 2 will be about. Thank you for listening. Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to teach about listening. And that sounds really boring, I know. But consider this. You've probably never had a listening class. And I'm going to take like 8 minutes here and talk about listening. One of the things I'm going to talk about is called listening blocks. And that's what these numbers are. You've probably been wondering. I'm speaking at about 125 words a minute. But your brain, most of your brains, can handle 400 or more words a minute, which means there's all this excess capacity for your mind to be thinking about all these other things, like listening's boring, do I really want to watch this, did I just hear the dog at the door whining to get in? And the answer is yes, you did, and that's Miko. I told you he'd be back. But the first listening lesson that I want to share with you is that you have all this extra capacity in your mind in any situation where you are thinking about what it reminds you of or how it offends you or what this next thing you should say is or wondering what they mean by that or seeing a squirrel or just being generally distracted. And this mind chatter, what the conversation in your head about the conversation going on out here is your clue of whether you're listening or not. If you had a voice in your head, just say, what mind chatter? That's the voice I'm talking about. So think about that. Think about how your mind is reacting to the situation around you. And there's all kinds of things that can block and shut down your listening. And those things are called listening blocks. And I actually have a list of 150 listening blocks. Time is a huge listening block. People's feeling of busyness, people feeling offended, people not feeling motivated to listen to a certain person, people feeling shame or feeling like they're owed an apology, people feeling like they just don't know how to start the conversation. That's the first listening lesson is think about what are the listening blocks that are in your way. What listening blocks are there right now? What listening blocks are there in the different situations that you're in every day, whether it's at work or at home or in politics? What are the things that shut your listening down? The next listening lesson is kind of the golden rule of listening. So we just talked about all the listening blocks that might be in your life or in a specific situation. Listening blocks are not meant to be used as excuses. And there's really one thing to do when you realize that there's a listening block. You can't have a different strategy for all the hundreds and thousands of listening blocks that could show up in any one moment. So here's just one strategy to deal with listening blocks. Listen anyway. I know that sounds simple, but again, this isn't a lot of complex stuff here. The point is, listen anyway. Listen even though you don't agree, even though it's distracting, even though there's the train whistle coming by the building. Listen anyway. Now, why would you listen anyway? The reason is because you don't know what kind of possibilities you could unlock if you push through those listening blocks. And that's really the essence, again, of this listening campaign is, can we create new possibilities by being more intentional and more strategic and more skillful in listening even when it's difficult? Again, when you know that the stakes are high and when you really need to listen, you can do it. But the trick is doing that in more areas of our life more consistently and really developing it as a practice, as a habit. And that's what we'll start getting into. Thanks for sticking this far. Now I want to start getting a little bit more specific and maybe a little bit more complex about what I'm teaching about here. First of all, I want to define more precisely what I mean by listening. If you look up listening or you study the types of listening, you basically come up with 3 different types. Hopefully my handwriting isn't too bad, but there's basically 3 different types of listening that are talked about a lot, or when people talk about listening, they're usually emphasizing one of these 3 different types of listening. One is the therapeutic or empathetic listening. This is being attentive to the emotions and the feelings of the person talking or the group or whoever it is you're interacting with. Informational listening is focusing on the facts and the circumstances and sort of just understanding what is the case, what's the situation, what's going on. Critical and analytical listening, that's where you start trying to see, does that make sense? Why? What caused that? Why is this happening? I definitely accept that those are 3 different types of listening. However, neither of these types really captures what I'm talking about when I'm launching this listening campaign. So I'm going to set a new concept up and give you a new definition. I'm introducing a new word or a new term called breakthrough listening, and I'm defining it this way. Breakthrough listening is doing what it takes to make the speaker or speakers feel fully heard and understood. So again, breakthrough listening is doing what it takes to make the speaker or speakers feel fully heard and understood. Listening, again, is a goal-directed activity. We're listening for different reasons, and depending on the reason, we listen in different ways. What I'm talking about specifically when I'm talking about this listening campaign and the type of listening that I really want us to hone in on and what I think can really make a difference is listening so that the speaker feels fully heard and understood. You might notice that the focus has shifted in this definition of listening. In the earlier definitions of empathetic listening or informational or critical listening, it was about how we as a listener tune in to different things going on in the conversation. How do we as a listener tune in to the different parts of a speaker's message? Breakthrough listening is different. Breakthrough listening is what are we doing as a listener to make the speaker feel heard and understood. And that's a critical distinction. And I just want to be clear about what I'm talking about. I'm shifting this conversation about listening from focused on us as listeners to what we can do to make the speaker feel heard and understood. How do we listen in a way? What do we actually say to make the speaker feel heard and understood? Think about the last time you felt fully heard and understood, where you know that somebody fully gets you. It's likely because they said something that made you understand yourself, that they as a listener understand how you feel about a certain situation and why you feel that way. And that's the basic point of this powerful paraphrase. You can see this is a simple template that you can use in your next conversation, or really at any time. And it simply goes, so you feel blank about blank because blank. One thing to notice about this, it actually incorporates all three of those types of listening. Feelings are obviously the therapeutic and empathetic type of listening. So you feel blank about blank. This is that informational listening. This is the situation, what's going on that you need to demonstrate that you have some understanding of as a listener. But then the critical analytical listening comes in when you are trying to understand and show the speaker that you understand why this person is feeling a certain way about a certain situation. So you feel blank about blank because blank. Is that right? And that's what this question mark is. You don't have to be 100% accurate when you do this. People will correct you, they'll clarify when you share the paraphrase, they'll really feel like you're trying to understand what they're saying. And honestly, a lot of times when you use this paraphrase, you're actually helping them understand these things for themselves. I'll share a quick example of how to use it, but also some of the hidden utility of this template. Let's say you're talking to somebody about the election. The presidential election in 2020, and they are very agitated about it. You know what the about section is. You know they're talking about the election, right? But they might not be saying what their emotion is about it. And then you can come in and say, it sounds like you're anxious about the upcoming election. And they might say, yeah, I'm anxious. Well, I'm actually afraid. You might see somebody self-correct themselves, but by you throwing out a potential emotion here, it lets them better understand it for themselves and thereby lets you accomplish your goal of letting them feel more heard and understood. I have a list of 300 emotions that I will give to you as a bonus and a thank you gift for watching this, so you can kind of expand your emotional vocabulary. Notice that in that example that I just shared, that I did not get to this part of the paraphrase, and that was okay. The point is you don't need to use the whole paraphrase every single time. You can focus on different aspects of it, and you can actually direct your questions at these different aspects of the paraphrase. So you feel anxious about the upcoming presidential election because you think our country's going to implode. Somebody might go, yeah, I'm actually, that's how I feel. And notice that if you didn't add this last piece of it, you might not have registered completely for them that you fully understand what it is they're feeling about a situation and why they're feeling that way. So that's a very quick overview of the powerful paraphrase. The last piece that I hope I didn't gloss over too quickly was that this is actually a way to ask questions in a safe way. Don't ask questions that are debate questions or that are challenging questions or that are like checking them for accuracy. That's not what the point of this particular type of listening is. Instead, you're trying to make them feel fully heard and understood, and you want to focus on their emotions, the situation, and why they feel that way. So if you can focus your questions in these areas, could you tell me a little bit more about that? Or can you just ask them, can you say why you feel that way about that situation? This is a template for the questions as much as it is a template for fully understanding somebody. Okay, I covered a lot of things in this video to kind of set the foundation for the next two videos. Again, we talked about listening blocks. We talked about listening anyway. We talked about breakthrough listening and the powerful paraphrase. Before you watch the next video, I'd love for you to keep track of your listening blocks and then try and listen anyway, and then record what becomes possible when you do that. And you can do that in the comments below. If you have questions about this, also add those to the comments and I'll answer them before you get to the next video. I have 2 PDFs that I'll share with you if you click the button as a thank you for listening. One is 150 listening blocks, and the other is the 300 words for emotions. So you can use those here before you watch the next video. I really appreciate you watching this. In the next video, we're going to get into how do you use this beyond just your interpersonal conversations, but with a small group and in your organization. Thanks for listening. Mika also wanted to say goodbye.